Turn up the radio and turn off the lights. I want it light as hell. I want the walls to melt. Cause I got to lose myself tonight. Yeah, I got to let it all go tonight. So turn off the lights. Cause now the world's turned down. Stop.
Two teams, two organizations, very different on-ice products in the 2013-2014 season. I'm talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Florida Panthers. Why the Florida Panthers, you ask? Because we're joined here today for the lunch hour by Miss Paige Lewis from Panther Parkway. Paige, how are you?
Hey Ken. Hey guys, how are you?
Coachless.
Yeah,
Or
hey,
coachless here in
us-
Pittsburgh.
us too.
Yeah, so two things that these organizations do have in common. As I mentioned, very different products on ice in terms of success. And success in Pittsburgh looked a little bit different than success in Florida this past offseason. I got to ask you, now that everything is all said and done, I think most people knew that the Panthers weren't going to be making the playoffs last season. That wasn't quite the trajectory. That wasn't the schedule for the development of that team. But did you consider 2013, 2014 a success as far as the team being on the right track moving forward in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Luongo, there you go. I mean, that trade in itself was huge for us. And also getting Brandon Peary for absolutely nothing. I think it's all the pieces are kind of falling together in 2013, 2014. Really helped that. Luongo is exactly what this team has been longing for on the back end. Tim Thomas just wasn't going to do it for us. Brandon Peary adds a much-needing scoring ability to this team. Now, whether he's going to be a first, second liner, I don't know. But, I mean, he played not many games last year and had 12 goals. So that's promising. So, yeah, I definitely think last year was although we finished 29th in the league, it really was a year to kind of get a few more pieces that we needed to get ready to go for next season.
Florida Panthers, 66 points, 29 wins, good for 15th in the conference, well ahead of the Buffalo Sabres, who aren't on any kind of track right now, as it seems. Pittsburgh Penguins with 109 points finished second in the conference. Yet both teams at the end of this regular season fire their head coach, Pittsburgh being Dan Bylsma and Florida being Peter Horacek. Now, Penguins also went a step further and fired their general manager, Ray Shero. And if you are just joining, the rock, if you're coming underneath the rock that you've been living under, I guess, Jim Rutherford has been named as the general manager for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, both teams sit in limbo sort of 1 week from the draft. The draft is a week from right now. Right now. The draft will be happening in Philadelphia. Paige will be in Philadelphia chowing down on cheesesteaks, I'm sure. and I got to ask, where are you guys on this coaching search? Lots of talk about Dan Bylsma. Does he or does he not join the Florida Panthers?
I don't know. Now it's the more Sportsnet. I mean, we talked about this yesterday on Twitter. The more Sportsnet has been saying, the money he intends to get and the years. Doug McClain said something, I believe, about 5 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of years for a coach who just got fired. A coach who just got fired while coaching Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. And if it's what did I read? 2.5 he wants, or 2.3, I think Sportsnet said, per year. That's a lot of money to invest in a coach, especially in a young team and a team who's fired their last 3 coaches in the last 4 years. So I'm not quite sure. And he did go to Vancouver. I don't know if he takes the job there, though, and I don't really know if they can afford him either, given the fact that they're paying for Tortorella and Luongo and David Booth and Mike Gillis and everyone else that they've fired or bought out in the last year. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping. Everyone knows my stance on Dan Bylsma and the Florida Panthers. I'm still holding hope on that. But I don't know. Right now, it's not looking really like it's happening. So we'll see.
Well, what is your stance? I mean, how about the Pittsburgh Penguins fans who maybe aren't hip to what your thoughts are on Bowsman in Florida? Would it be a good fit? Would it be exactly what this team needs? I mean, we're talking about a coach who his biggest his biggest critics will say that he's not a playoff coach. He can't get the job done in the postseason, but he has proven himself regular season time in, time out. And that's pretty much where the Panthers need to apply
Yeah,
themselves first.
this is a team that's gone to the playoffs once in 12 years. I mean, we would kill for the opportunity that the Pittsburgh Penguins have to go to the playoffs year after year and at least be in contention. I mean, every year, every single person picks the Pittsburgh Penguins to go pretty far. No one usually picks the Penguins to get knocked out in the first round. So yeah, we would love that opportunity to at least get to the postseason. And I think that, I think the biggest thing that Pens fans had with him was his adjustments, and I get that, but also the fact that he doesn't give the younger guys a chance, like the Simone Dupre's and the Jason Magnas. But honestly, I mean, Alexander Barkov, Nick Bjugstad, those guys aren't going anywhere. He's not sending those guys to the AHL. And I think that he could really do something special with those two boys in particular, but also Jonathan Huberdeau. I mean, I like his up-tempo, high-energetic style that he has, as well as the fact that he's a player's coach. I mean, we had Kevin Dineen and Pete DeBoer, who were kind of disciplinarians and kind of scary. So, I mean, it would be a nice change for us if he would want to come here. So I definitely, and not to put down Fleury. I've always been, I love Fleury, but now he has, a goaltender in Roberto Luongo that could, hopefully, the people like and hopefully take us far in the playoffs, to at least, Game 7 Stanley Cup final. He can lose then, but whatever.
How long of a leash does Roberto Luongo have in Florida? Because it seemed to be, it was never quite the same in Vancouver. Was that a long or short? And for a long time there, it was really short, and he was taking criticism from all angles. But then all of a sudden, he's world. I mean, he's loved again, and he's certainly in a popular place in Florida. I think right now, but. How long of a leash does he have with that, especially considering the fact that he's notoriously a bad starter in each regular season?
Yeah. I mean, people realize, I'm trying to think of the saying. When you lose Luongo, I know everyone hated him too. Like when he left us, people hated him. Like everyone in Pittsburgh hates Fleury. But he was our best goaltender of all time. I mean, the numbers speak for himself. And, I think it depends on how he is next year. I mean, is he going to be, we need to win. We need to win, and we're looking at Luongo for that. But the big part of it is our defense. Our defense needs to help him more than anything. And if we don't fix our D, then Luongo's not going to be what everyone expected him to be. But he's still a hell of a goaltender. And like I said, no one's really focused on making it far in the playoffs. They just want to get to the playoffs. That's all. And I think Luongo gives us the best shot at that.
In their prime, John Van Beesbroek or Roberto Luongo?
Roberto Luongo. I hated Beezer. Hated him. But I am the only one that you will talk to that hates him. So
he took you to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I hated him as a kid. I can't, like when you're just little and you're just stupid and you don't know why you hate or do things that you do. Well, that was one of them. I never cared for him ever.
I hated Kenny Reggett, and
I hated Bure too, though. So
you're insane.
Mm-hmm. But I loved Whitney and all those guys. The Wizard.
I think my problem with Kenny Reggett is my name's Ken.
That's a solid reason.
I like to be called Ken. I don't like it whenever people call me Kenny. So anybody who is doing their part to further the cause of Kenny being a name that is socially acceptable, bothered me. I didn't like Kenny Albert either. I still don't like Kenny Albert, but Kenny Reggett bothered me, which is ironic because you're talking about John Van Beesbroek, the guy who carried the Florida Panthers to the Stanley Cup Finals that year when they beat Pittsburgh in the conference finals. And I'm talking about Kenny Reggett, the guy who should have been in goal to carry the Penguins past the conference finals past the Florida Panthers. Meanwhile, as a big Tom Barrasso fan, whom everybody in Pittsburgh hated, so I don't really understand my childhood very well.
Well, hey, everyone in Pittsburgh hates all their goalies. That's how it goes.
That really is quite true. I think Andy Chiodo had a bit of a legendary status just for that one save, and he didn't play long enough. JSL Ben, you say that on the street, it's a good way to get a black eye.
See, everyone here too didn't like. I mean, I can't say everyone. I mean, we had a lot of intelligent fans, but like a lot of people didn't like Thomas Vokoun. I love Thomas Vokoun. Like loved him. I remember the main reason that everyone had for not liking him was because we played the Phoenix Coyotes. I forgot what year it was, and he let in a bouncing puck from center ice. It literally bounced the whole way and just bounced right through his legs. Like, it was the worst thing that could have happened. And ever since then, like, everyone wanted Vokoun's head. So
it's the most difficult position to play in sports for a reason, and it's you have to have the thickest skin for sure. If I created a poll right now, your top 5 goaltenders throughout Pittsburgh Penguins history, and they listed Tom Barrasso, Marc-Andre Fleury, Johan Hedberg, Brent Johnson, and Ty Conklin. Tom Barrasso and Ken Reggett. Sorry, not Ken Reggett. I'm still on that. Tom Barrasso, Marc-Andre Fleury would finish 4th and 5th in that poll, I'm pretty sure.
Lovely.
Brent Johnson being on the top. I think people would go for Conklin 3rd, and they'd give Hedberg number 2 based on that run in the early 2000s. Anyway, goaltending talk aside, give me 3 reasons why Dan Bilesma should take the job in Florida.
Number 1, he's number 16. His name's Alexander Barkov. Now, Barkov.
That would have been where you went with that.
No, Barkov, Bugstad, Trocheck, Huberdeau, Puri, Jimmy Hayes, Quentin Howden, all the young guys. That is a reason for him to want to come here. We've got something really good going on. Something that a lot of people forget about. We've had high draft picks for quite some time now. It's a good place to come. Him here at Tampa. Anyone should want to come to these 2 places based off of the youth movement that's going on. So that's my number 1. My number 2, it's Florida. I hate Florida so much, and I love our team. That's literally the only thing that like keeps me okay with this place. But other than that, like I just hate the state of Florida. I always have. But anyone else wants to come here. People want to come here. People want the beach. They want the heat. They want the heat for some reason. And I think and it's cheap. It's very, very cheap compared to Pittsburgh. No state income tax. Housing is. I've seen housing's a lot cheaper than Pittsburgh too. No, but Florida in general, it's a beautiful place. It's a good place for a family. I think it would be nice for that. And then thirdly is because it is finally, this is a chance for him to redeem himself, kind of, to challenge himself to all the people that said, you are who you are. And you got, where you got because of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, James Neal, Chris Kunitz, because of, all these, unbelievable players that Pittsburgh has. But it's a chance to redeem himself and be like, well, look, I can take this young group that we have and I can give them, what they want. I can bring these guys into the playoffs. So yeah, I think that should be a good challenge for him. And I think that's a good reason to take the job.
Paige Lewis, you won't find her working for the Florida Tourism Bureau anytime soon. You're really making me feel good. I'm taking a vacation down there next week. And now I'm all excited for that. Thanks.
Well, you're going to Tampa. I'm talking about like
True.
South Florida, Miami area. That's where I live.
Hey, man, Will Smith. It was good enough for Will Smith. It's good enough.
Oh, my God.
Dan Bilesma. Vancouver versus Florida, though. That's one thing you didn't bring up. Man, Vancouver, look at the end of their regular season and just how much of a disaster it was. And I look at Florida and the end of that regular season. It was a party down there for the last few months. Once you guys got Luongo, it was, all no cares in the world. Everyone was very, very happy with the way that regular season seemed to be ending. Complete meltdown in Vancouver.
Unbelievable meltdown. I knew it was a meltdown because I mean I'm sure everyone, I mean I got yelled at by someone in the Pravies, and I literally had like death threats from Vancouver people all on my Twitter feed, like people calling me every name in the book, like all these Vancouver people. Anytime I would mention Luongo, and they're like, "Yo, well, you guys are still gonna suck next year." And I'm like, all right, like you could just tell their fans were just like so heartbroken, and they just took everything out on me, and that's more of a reason for me to like really hope that we don't trade our first pick to them. It's just that. Like
that was a very authentic British Columbian accent, Paige.
Thanks.
That was beautiful. I look at Vancouver and I see more problems right there with what's going on with that organization than you certainly see down in Florida. And that kind of baggage, you have goaltending makes the coach so many times. How much faith do you have in Eddie Lack or Jacob Markstrom? To really make it happen.
They have to get a head coach. No, a goaltender, a starting goaltender. They have to. You really think that team is going to do anything with Lack in net? And I'm not saying I think Lack is going to be a good goalie, and I think Markstrom's going to be a good goalie in due time, not right now. And Ryan Kessler wants out. So now what happens? Like that's what shocks me about Dan Bousman interviewing there. Like, I mean, I know he's going to interview with everyone, but do you really want to go into that? Like, is that really something you want to do? So, but oh well.
It's pretty terrifying. Now,
yeah.
Other coaches that are out there, John Stevens off the market.
Yep.
Pretty much, I think he used that as good leverage to get himself a promotion in Los Angeles. He's now the associate coach, not assistant coach, and very much the heir apparent once Daryl Sutter decides no more, and he takes a step aside. Which, if you're Daryl Sutter, why aren't you retiring right now? I would love to go out that way.
Because you have a chance to do it again. That team has a chance to do it for 2-3 more years. As long as you have Anze Kopitar, and I can't even say Jonathan Quick anymore because I'm sorry, he was so brutal in the playoffs. But
no kidding. How does Marc-Andre Fleury get the criticism he gets and Jonathan Quick gets a free pass?
Because it's Marc-Andre Fleury, and Pittsburgh media is just awful sometimes, and so are the fans. I love you guys. Everyone knows I'm a Pens fan, but like it's people take it a little too much. Because I think it's time
for Pittsburgh media there though. Because the Pittsburgh media is typically fine with Marc-Andre Fleury. It seems like it's every other market and every other, whether it be north of the border or anything like that, who still haven't forgiven him for the 2003 World Junior Championship or anything like that. He's just never given the benefit of the doubt.
Because everyone has to pick on Pittsburgh somehow, because if Sidney Crosby's getting 104 points in a season, no one's going to pick on him. So it's like, let's pick on Fleury. But like this year, like Fleury was okay in the playoffs. Like he was not horrible. I mean, he finished fourth in save percentage. What?
He was better than Crosby.
There you go. I mean, he finished fourth in save percentage and goals against average, and Sidney Crosby only had 9 points. So all the attention shifted to Sidney Crosby. Like, it's just... Everyone has to make fun of Pittsburgh somehow. It's just everyone hates Pittsburgh if you're not a Pens fan. It's just how it goes. It's sad. It's unfortunate that people can't just like enjoy it, but it is what it is. But Jonathan Quick, I think slowly people are kind of starting to realize that maybe he's not really elite. Maybe he's just really good sometimes, just like Fleury. He has that athletic kind of style to him. And just like Andrei Pavlich, they can make unbelievable saves and highlight reel saves, but like, when it comes down to everything else, I don't know. People are just looking at Jonathan Quick's run 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they won the Cup, because that was unbelievable. He's never going to do that again, ever.
It may be the case where nobody does that again.
Probably. That was like unbelievable. That was stupid. It was fun to watch, but that was too good. But yeah, I don't see why Daryl Sutter would want to leave right now, because I really do think this team has a good chance. And I'm not a fan of Gaborik but he worked really well there, and he worked well with Anze Kopitar. So I think that's a good pairing. If Gabrick could kind of keep up with that, and they've just got a really, they've got young, good defensemen, and I don't know. I think they got a hell of a thing going on there. I wouldn't want to leave either.
And kind of speaking to what you said again earlier, the weather, man. It's probably even better, really, in Los Angeles if the LA scene is for you, because it's not you don't have the humidity that you have in Florida.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've never been to California, so I wouldn't know. But John Stevens, good for him. I mean, as soon as that's what their plan is, right? John Stevens is going to go up and become the head coach.
That it appears to be that way.
Yeah, if a lot of coaches choose to stay places because of their family. I mean, people have to realize, like, yep. if Dan Bylsma's wife is like, I really want to come to Florida, I'm sure that he would be like, okay, let's take a bit of a, let's not demand 2.5 or however the hell much Sportsnet was saying. Maybe same thing with maybe with Daryl Sutter's family likes it there. That might be a thing. Like, we really want to be here. He's still good at what he does.
Yes, he is. And at the same time, if you're John Stevens, how quickly do you want to throw yourself right back into the head coaching realm of things when you consider the way things went down in Philadelphia there at the very end? And what better city to have a bad experience in than Philadelphia, with those fans and with that media in particular.
Yeah. I'm amazed. Like, what was that?
I was just thinking, like, how badly would you really want to, be a head coach in this league again after going through that?
It was funny because I didn't know too much about him because a lot of our fans wanted him here, and I know that he's more of a he's a defensive style. I mean, he's good with the young guys like the Jake Muzzins and everything, but we really don't have that here in Florida. So I did a lot of research on him and was kind of like looking at, why we need this guy. And I don't really know if he makes sense for Pittsburgh either, because I know everyone kind of wanted him in Pittsburgh. His head coaching record was brutal. Like, he literally had the worst record in the history of anything. It was like in the matter of games played or something or games coached, he had the worst record of all time. Like, the worst. Like, he had just had a losing record. So I mean, maybe he's learned a lot, from Sutter, and maybe he'll do a hell of a job in LA eventually. But I don't know. I was very weirded out when everyone kind of wanted him as their head coach in Pittsburgh.
So John Stevens is out for everybody. He is not on the market for the Panthers, for Pittsburgh, for Vancouver, for any of these vacancies that are out there right now. So let's talk about the guys who are available. Willie Desjardins is the hot pick. He's this year's Guy Boucher, in a way, coming out of his junior success, coming into then going to the AHL and winning the Calder Cup just about a week ago. And where are you on Willie Desjardins, and are you hearing any whispers in Florida? Because it's mostly Vancouver and Pittsburgh where I'm hearing Willie Desjardins' name mentioned.
I haven't heard anything at all about Desjardins for the Panthers. Panthers are done. Like, they're down to their last. Dale already made his six picks from Rennie, Wilson, Crawford, Gallant, Bylsma, and Peters, and now that's narrowed down to whatever 3. So he's definitely not, I don't think, here at all. And I haven't heard. I mean, John Shannon said something about Desjardins possibly for that he didn't want to go to Pittsburgh or something yesterday, and then Darren Dreger said the exact opposite, that him and that Vancouver and him are in Pittsburgh are the ones that are after him. So if I had to guess, I would say Desjardins goes to Vancouver because they've been hot on his trail for quite some time, so I've heard. And it would not surprise me, and Josh Reimer actually said this, it would not surprise me to see Bill Peters land in Pittsburgh.
Yes,
so
we're getting to the Bill Peters mark, which is an interesting decision for me, based on not so much what he would do this season, but what would happen after that. We'll get to Bill Peters in just one second. The thing with Willie Desjardins and all these reports that we're hearing. It's funny because like you mentioned, John Shannon and Darren Dreger. And there's been so many different reports on all these things, and it was the same way with the GM surge in Pittsburgh. It's almost like the beginning of the insider war of TSN and Rogers. You know, now that TSN is done actually broadcasting games, they're going to kind of crank it up. Now, which insiders do you trust more? Well, TSN's had a better track record. I will at least say that. But we'll see which insiders continue to be the most connected now that Rogers has that deal. I think it's sort of an interesting dynamic that's going to develop over the next 12 months to 2 years, really, as the beginning of this contract starts with Rogers. Bob McKenzie, will he continue to be Papa Bob? It's funny.
I mean, Elliot Friedman just went over to Sportsnet, so.
Yep, everyone's jumping ship. And who could blame him, really? I mean, that's. I feel bad for TSN because they really did do a good job with that whole package, and I'm hoping Rogers has some cool new ideas, maybe some new looks that we can go with the game.
Yeah, see, I feel awful for TSN, but I'm close with Merrick, so I'm like see Merrick. You know, I'm excited for him mainly, and I know his buddy George Stroumboulopoulos, he's pumped about that too.
That's
so
gonna be cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool because he seems like such a chill dude. And yeah, he's a diehard Montreal fan, but you know, once you become into broadcasting, like I think you kind of learn how to, you need to learn to keep your biases out of it. So I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that these guys don't have a loyalty based on their teams for the most part, then you're kind of kidding yourself.
Yeah, I think the only one that literally doesn't, I don't think Merrick has loyalties at all to any team.
So. No, and I think when you hear him talk about it, you can tell that the dude used to be a Leafs fan, and he just got pissed off with losing.
There's a shock.
Whole theory on that, but now, no, I don't think he has any kind of loyalties. But okay, moving back into the coaching search, the other name that is linked to all of these teams anyway that I see a lot is Mark Crawford, which is the dumbest. In my opinion, and
I agree.
Want to hire Mark Crawford? He's been out of coaching for how long now? When was the last time he was working with an NHL team?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know.
I have to look it up actually.
Is it I don't know. I might be completely off. 0506?
Okay, no, because he was with Dallas after that.
After is it that I thought I could have sworn. Hold on, I know it was Vancouver. Okay, he was with Vancouver. I'll look it up.
It was Vancouver. Then he was with LA for a little while.
Okay, I forgot about LA.
And then Dallas. So I think it was about 2010. So
oh wow, yeah. Okay, so I'm totally wrong. Yeah, okay, I forgot. Yep. I forgot that he went back to. God, he was in Vancouver that long. He was done in Vancouver in 0506. That's what I'm thinking.
And what you're thinking is, okay, when was the last time he was in the playoffs? If I had asked that question, you'd be dead on, Paige.
Yes.
I think it was 2003, 2004.
Yep.
With the Vancouver Canucks, and that didn't go well either.
And then he missed it 5 years straight.
So Mark Crawford, there's that. There's the fact that has anyone ever heard of Tom Bertuzzi?
And that might happen this year, right? The court date? Is it this year?
This fall. Immediately, as soon as he takes over as head coach for any of these teams who might be crazy enough to hire him, he will also be doing that court stuff.
Right, so that won't be a distraction at all.
No. Nope. So... Mark Crawford, just, I don't know, scratch him off your list. I really hope that anyone who's sane enough to be thinking about or making these decisions is also thinking the same thing. All right. Right before we came on, there were two interesting tweets. And again, this is two different media moguls. Actually, no, this is the same one. These are both reports that are coming from people involved with Sportsnet. Jeff Merrick saying that Doug McClain has interviewed for the Pittsburgh Penguins coaching position, which we were talking about lists. When Jim Rutherford took over the job, he said that he had 2 or 3 people in mind. He wasn't going to talk to too many people outside of that. Now we have one of these 30-person lists again that is developed. And so Doug McClain apparently has interviewed for the Pittsburgh Penguins coaching job. How off the wall is that one, Paige?
I feel like that's like as weird as like hearing Mike Keenan's name come up. Like it brings back all the memories from my childhood as a Panthers fan. Like I think that would be awful. I don't understand why that would even be. That's off the wall. I find that hard to believe, but I mean, Doug McClain confirmed it, so.
Yeah, and there's really not many people closer to Doug McClain to make that confirmation than Jeff Merrick himself.
Jeff Merrick,
so
yep.
That happened. That's not a rumor. That happened. Doug McClain interviewed for the coaching job. Now, most people, when they hear Doug McClain, they know him as one of 2 things. 1, as one of the Hockey Central guys, or 2, as the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets before Scott Housen, the one who left the pile of shit for Scott Housen to inherit, and really made his job hell for a few years. Doug McClain, the coach. What does that look like? Well, he has 5 years of coaching experience, 2 with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and 3 with your Florida Panthers.
Yoo-hoo!
Right off the bat. And,
what is that?
He was in charge of those Florida Panthers teams, or that Florida Panthers team that did make it to the Stanley Cup final.
Yes,
but
he was.
Ever since then, it was pretty heavy sledding for McClain behind the bench.
Yeah, he was fired in what is it, 98? I think he was only here for 3 years, you said. So he'd have been fired in 98. I was 8 years old when he was fired, so no, I wouldn't go there, especially the fact that he's been out of it since 2003. I mean, that's a long time to not be a head coach, and then to all of a sudden jump back into a head coaching job with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, who are in their prime. Like, you need to get a coach who, if it like we said earlier about Mike Babcock, like if it's not going to be a guy like Mike Babcock, you're going to need to get a coach who can really bring out the best in Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. I don't think Doug McClain is that guy. Just a hunch.
Doug McClain, here's my theory. Jim Rutherford is old. Doug McClain is also old. They're probably old buddies. And, here's a little courtesy. I'm going to interview my old buddy. I'm not going to say no. Hey, Jim, what do you think? Sure. Well, let's have a phone interview.
That's exactly what happened.
So, old people being old people. Maybe it was over breakfast. Maybe they went to bingo one night or something like that, and that was the interview. Let's hope that that's all that it'll come down to. Now, the other one that's the most compelling pick, aside from Will Desjardins, and I'm not even entertaining Ron Wilson at this moment, but my guys are Willie Desjardins. And I also like Bill Peters out of Detroit.
All right.
He's the assistant in Detroit right now. His NHL coaching experience is as an assistant in Detroit. He has 3 years of as being an assistant coach with the Detroit Red Wings. Aside from that, it is all in
Rockford
AHL.
Yep, Rockford
and junior. Yeah, man. How can you say no to a nice hog?
See, that was my thing when we were having our coaching decisions. A lot of the people were asking me, who are your top 3? And my top 3 were always Baalsma, Gallant, and Peters. And why Peters? Well, you know what? He had some success in the AHL. I mean, the years he was there, he went to the conference finals all the time. he turned some really good players into NHLers, which I like that. Same reason I liked Gerard Gallant. And Dale's connection with Chicago and Rockford. I mean, of course, I trust Dale and his decisions, basically. But I do like the fact that he learned under Mike Babcock. You're learning under the best coach in the NHL. I can't say what possibly could go wrong, but he has learned from the best. He's more of a defensive-minded coach. He's a PK guy. He's really good for your penalty killing units, and maybe he'll help your D a little bit. But other than that, I don't think it would be too bad for Pittsburgh. And if the Mike Babcock rumors are true, what they say about, maybe he finishes off this last year in Detroit and then comes to Pittsburgh next year, maybe Bill Peters only signs for a year, and then Mike Babcock takes over as head coach, and then it's back to being Babcock and Peters again in Pittsburgh. So that's kind of my thought process.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm going with this. When I hear Bill Peters right away, I think to Mike Babcock and what might be one of the most transparent moves in history in the National Hockey League with all this Mike Babcock talk. But it also creates maybe a little bit of an awkward situation, though.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see it right away, because we're going to know what the term of Bill Peters' contract is. If he signs a 3-4 year deal, which would be crazy for a first-year coach typically anyway,
right?
Then I think the writing's sort of on the wall that maybe Mike Babcock is not going to be the guy coming in here. If I'm Bill Peters and I am not comfortable with that happening, I'm demanding a term more than 1 year. But if I am fully aware of the fact that Mike Babcock might be coming in here next year, and I'm behind the bench working with the man again, then I sort of am okay with that if I sign a 1 year deal. So it really depends on how comfortable he's going to be now.
What a slap in the face, though, right? Like, what if he's awesome next year? Like, what if I don't really think the Penguins are going to win the Cup unless they take care of a lot of stuff. But, like, if they go so far and they go, like, back to the Stanley Cup Finals or something, and then they lose or whatever, or even if they do win the Stanley Cup, like, now what do you do? Sorry, exactly. Bill. Mike Babcock's still going to come here, even though you're awesome and won us a cup. Like, what happens then?
And I don't think you can do that, because I think that in that case, Bill Peters is your coach.
Yeah, and no, I know.
Then you have to go back to Mike Babcock and say, hey, that deal, which, I mean, let's be honest. If they bring Bill Peters here with the explicit thought that Mike Babcock will be behind the bench for the Pittsburgh Penguins the year after that, they've talked to Babcock. They tamper. It happens.
Guess what?
So that under the table deal, washing that out, man, things are. I've been pushing for. Okay, 24/7 has gotten stale. It's been awful.
Yep.
Lately, I want a front office 24/7, and there's a few places where that would work. Number one, this season for the Pittsburgh Penguins would be great for that. Two, any season with the Edmonton Oilers, especially with all the restructuring that's always happening out there. And three, what the hell? The Philadelphia Flyers. Just throw them out there. But really, what better circus to follow this year than the Pittsburgh Penguins and all the things that could be happening if that happens. So, Bill Peters is the next guy. You mentioned him as one of your three top candidates in Florida, the people who you kind of are interested in or would like to see, along with Dan Bylsma and Gerard Gallant. Gerard Gallant. If Dan Bylsma says no, is he your guy?
Yep. I think so. I don't see it any other way. And I take everything kind of with a grain of salt, but Doug MacLean said it too. Like, Doug MacLean said that I think that's gonna be the guy. It doesn't shock me. Look what he did to Jonathan Huberdeau. And granted, it is the juniors, but that kid was a monster. a monster. And this is also a kid who was terrible last year, god awful, who won the Calder Cup, who won Rookie of the Year. So yeah, I don't see why not. I heard this guy kind of just has a huge heart, is just super, super nice. Everyone in Montreal seems to love him. I've done a lot of talking with a lot of fans there, some personnel that say that he's just the best. So it kind of makes me feel better that if Dan Bylsma is not going to be the guy, I'm okay with Gerard Gallant. I do not like the fact that, he only lasted really a year and a half in the NHL as a head coach. But, like you said, Doug MacLean kind of left that team in a really bad spot when he got fired, and then Gerard Gallant took over for him, and kind of they didn't have a lot of good people on that team. But I do like the career he's had. I like the success that he's had in juniors, and I like kind of the roller coaster that he's gone through from going to the AHL, the juniors, NHL as an assistant coach, a head coach, fired, back to the AHL, back to the NHL. I like that. I think he has learned a lot, and I think that he is ready to kind of take on this job. But I wouldn't be comfortable with giving him a long-term deal.
Ron Wilson, you want him?
No.
Me either. Okay, that's it for Ron Wilson.
Nope.
So you seem to be on Team Gallant, Team Bylsma. I'm Team Desjardins, Team Dale Peters. If you had to, you're Bylsma over Gallant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm a little bit torn. The thing that Peters has over Desjardins is the fact that he does have NHL experience. Willie Desjardins doesn't really have experience with that. He doesn't have experience working with star players, and there certainly are going to have that here in Pittsburgh. So that's definitely where Bill Peters has the edge over Willie Desjardins. Willie Desjardins does look like a baby Joel Quenneville. So
that could be a good or a bad thing.
It could be a good or a very bad thing.
You guys talk about hating adjustments. Joe Quenneville, everyone hated his lines in the playoffs. So, if he's anything like
Joe
him.
Joe Quenneville knows how to make an adjustment, if you know what I'm saying.
Wop, wop.
Now, what'll be curious to see, though, because right away, these guys are going to have to throw their coaching staffs together. And I think in Pittsburgh, people have a little bit of a better idea of they know who they want behind the bench as assistant coach more than they know what they want for the
Wait, is Rick Tocchet like a real thing?
Oh, people want Rick Tocchet and Alf Samuelson, and if you don't give it to them, then this whole thing's a disaster.
Have they ever met Rick Tocchet?
Probably not. I would wager to say that 99% of the people on Twitter have not met Rick Tocchet.
Okay. All right. Well, that would be interesting. Yeah, like for us, I always wonder, I'm like, who the heck is he? Like everyone's talking about the head coach. Who the heck our assistant coach is going to be? But George Richards from the Miami Herald said that John Madden is 100% staying, that Dale will not let him go, that he is 100% our assistant coach, one of them. So that's promising because I like that. So
I think people in Pittsburgh, more than anything else, just want somebody who is willing to bash a skull off the wall.
I think that's Rick Tocchet.
Or another. That would be Rick Tocchet, and that's why people want that. People thought that Tony Granato was going to be that guy, and is that guy. And for as much as we know, it hasn't shown up that way. The most vintage Tony Granato that we've seen on the bench is that altercation with
the Laviolette one
in Philadelphia.
Yeah, awesome.
I think people want to see more of that, but with our own players on the bench, because that sends a great message to the rest of the team. Forget about the fact that these are guys who are making millions of dollars to be professional athletes and all of that stuff, and what they're going to respond to and what they're not going to respond to. And when we think of yelling, screaming, ranting coaches, who do we think of?
Patrick Waugh.
Okay, Patrick Waugh, and that was sort of effective this year. We'll say that. Patrick Waugh worked.
Bruce Boudreau.
No, but Bruce. Bruce is still a fun guy. Bruce
No,
lets
I
you
just
have
loved when
fun on
Bruce
the
yelled
ice
at
is the
Ovechkin
problem.
in Washington. That was the best.
Well, I think everybody had fun with that. There's Easton.
Do you hear
Easton
him?
would be. Oh my God, he's great.
The kid hasn't stopped.
Easton and what's the puppy's name?
Griffey.
Riffy. A while ago, I could hear them going back and forth with each other, and I was wondering when can we hear their podcast?
Easton.
No, you don't. No, he's fine. Unless he's standing on top of the the island with jump or something like that. Okay, we'll wrap this up here pretty quickly, so that you can go back to your other responsibilities that you have on the table here. What do you have any specific thoughts on the assistants with the Florida Panthers though? Before we let you go,
The assistant coaches.
yes.
I have whoever the head coach is. Obviously, they're going to bring their own guy, but right now our assistants are Brian Scrudlin and John Madden. I'm 100% sure John Madden is staying, as like I said, according to George Richards, that they all said that he really likes him, and everyone likes him. He's a face-off guy. He's a face-off guru. I mean, Alexander Barkov was unbelievable for like a stretch in face-offs, and it was all due to John Madden. He worked with them religiously every single practice. As far as Brian Scrudlin, obviously it's going to be up to the head coach if they want him or not. I'm not sure. If not, I would imagine Brian Scrudlin would go back to being the director of player personnel, which he's awesome at because everyone loves Screwy. He's just the best. Like every single person, every player, like he's just like their buddy, and he's really helpful and gives everyone tips on what to do, what not to do when you come up to the NHL, and that's why I think he worked as an assistant coach. But like I said, it all depends if it's Bausma, Gallant, or Crawford. I think he was the three that we narrowed it down to. So we shall see.
Lots of interesting things going on for both of these teams, and hopefully at least what we're seeing reported. Again, Josh Reimer saying he thinks it's going to be Bill Peters. Doug McClain comes out of nowhere, interviews. We think that's just whatever. Will Desjardins for Pittsburgh. Gerard Gallant in Florida. Still a lot of names out there. 2 dates I've heard mentioned today by Josh Reimer says Pittsburgh will wrap up their search tomorrow. So by this time tomorrow, we might know who the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins is. If not before that, the way news usually tends to leak out in this biz. And Monday is the day I'm here for you guys, Paige. Is that what seems to be your on your radar?
Yep, Monday, unless, like you said, it leaks out before then, which it always does. But I don't know, Talon's usually pretty good with keeping hush-hush about everything. So it just depends, if the coach – if it's Gallant, you'll know because Gallant and Doug McClain are best friends. So if it ends up being Gerard Gallant, I guarantee we'll find out beforehand. And with with Bausma too, everyone has that guy under a microscope right now. So either way, I'm sure it will leak before Monday. But yeah, Monday is what I'm hearing. So
Gerard Gallant is also in Montreal.
Montreal.
So,
that's my Montreal accent.
But yeah, okay. So here's the Paige. When I say Montreal, am I saying that correctly in any way, shape, or form?
Montreal.
Yeah.
You say it just like me, like
an
American. Woo.
Like, yeah, baby. And anyone outside of Quebec, Montreal. But I always hear that obviously it's going to be different than the French pronunciation. But I always hear that we're, I don't know, Montreal.
My boyfriend pretends to be French Canadian a lot, so I hear he says Montreal differently.
Now, can he speak French at all?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then he at least has that going for him.
But he's not from Quebec. He's from Ontario. He's from Hamilton, Ontario. And I have a gigantic picture of Rocket Richard in my house. He's the worst Leafs fan ever because he hates the Leafs. So. But he loves Montreal. Not anymore. He loves Penguin, or he loves the Panthers, obviously, only.
Sure. We'll throw him in there with the Merrick generation though of Leaf fans who are just like, you know what? I love the Leafs. I bleed blue, baby, but really I don't care anymore.
He actually always hated the Leafs. He told me since he was a kid he always hated them because he thought their fans were obnoxious. And
That's
hey,
true.
they still are. So I'm just kidding.
100%.
I'm just kidding. Don't yell at me, Leafs fans.
Cool. Well, that's all for the Pens Nation radio show here on Thursday. A little bit of a lunch hour edition. Paige, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Next time we talk, I'm sure we'll know who the coach is. Have fun in Philadelphia.
Thank you. I wish you were going.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll be in Florida and all as well in that regard.
Ooh, enjoy.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Good luck on your coach. I hope it's Bill Peters.
Yay.
Radio and turn